Hello, I'm Alex Borbro, your Senior Director of Sales. Welcome to the Corporate Real Estate Week. Please help me welcome Mr. Dinesh Malkani, founder and CEO of Smarten Spaces, with best practices for transitioning to a hybrid workplace.
So let me get started, right? I think this is such a hot topic right now. I think a lot of companies around the world are starting to figure out what happens during the next 6 months and what happens over the next 2 to 5 years as well, right? So it is about short term, but it's also about the long term. And any statistic I look at, any CEO that we talk to, any company we talk to, I think the shift to hybrid is real. I think the shift to hybrid is obviously to be figured out. But from what we've heard, when I look at these reports, is definitely there is productivity improvement that has happened. People are looking at reducing their real estate footprint. And I think they do agree that if hybrid, when you worked out the collaboration issues, is definitely the new way to go, right? And look, most companies will traverse this journey in a completely different way, depending on the country, depending on the culture of the company. But we found that, over the last 6 to 9 months, of course, it was about remote work. Today, we're in the phase where a lot of companies are coming back to work and workplace readiness for them becomes hugely critical. Where we're moving towards, and I'd actually like to say that over the last 3 months, our most active conversations have been in the area of flexibility. How do I shift my organization from what used to be fixed desks, fixed spaces, fixed timings to a very flexible manner for all the right reasons, right? And very quickly for the companies that have done those deployments, it shifts over to culture because soon they realize that you're working in sort of a flexible manner, right? And let's say as an example, an employee comes to work and then they sort of find that I'm the only person in the office and I don't know anybody else. Well, the culture piece kicks in because people kind of feel, then why did I really show up? So while companies have been thinking of flexibility, I think very quickly the culture piece is going to shoot in terms of how do you collaborate better? How do you make sure that teams work better together? And then eventually what we see is the whole sort of notion of shifting the traditional workspace into the future of the workplace, right? Where there are 4 or 5 elements that are going to be very key. The first is going to be productivity. Nobody's going to do anything if productivity goes down, so that has to be managed. The second is employee experience. I think employees have gone through the biggest change so far, and so that becomes a second criteria. Savings of cost. One of the benefits of working in hybrid is, well, why do I need all this space if I am going to have a percentage of my employees or teams working at home? The fourth is around flexibility. I think as you hire and recruit people, you'll find that, people are looking for flexible options. And last but not the least, safety, moving all the way up to wellness. But this is the journey that we have charted out that most companies have been telling us that they are going to be taking, right? We've, been working on flexible spaces for the last 4 years. And I think over the last 6 to 9 months, we've just been very busy in helping companies get back to work, but also traverse the journey, right? And we have a lot of learning. So I'm going to sum up the learnings into really 5 stages that I think people are going to take to be able to successfully transition to the hybrid workplace environment. The first is around workforce collaboration and how that's going to impact. The second is around just looking at your spaces, introducing the concept of digitizing every square foot at every desk that you have, looking at the employee experience and how do you give them that digital sort of seamless, smooth way for them to be able to manage in a hybrid situation. Fourth is once you've done that, be able to give up unused space. And last but not the least is, be able to shift to a holistic technology strategy as opposed to just doing that in bits and pieces, right? So I'll walk you through these 5 critical things that I believe are very important for you to transition to the hybrid workplace. The first thing is before you look at the workplace, it's very important you look at the workforce, right? You start to look at introducing flexible hours, right? So how are you going to manage in who comes back on what days, what shifts are going to people be working on, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's the first key as a company to fundamentally make that decision. Then is to look at your workforce and say, well, I have to categorize them in 3 buckets. The first being fully remote. We're hiring and I can tell you, and so are all the customers that we work with. The notion that you have to be next to the workplace is going away. So classify them as fully remote, fully on-premise. There are some jobs that just need to be in the office, and then flexible, right? So you basically classify them into three parts. And then you determine on that basis the teams that need to work together, right? Because it's definitely, I don't want to come into work if I don't know anybody, or if I am not in the neighborhood that I used to work in, or that I would like to work in, right? So you have to make that determination pretty quickly, and then create the right neighborhood so that you could bring this together. And then eventually, I think it's a great opportunity for HR to be able to look at engagement strategies, right? That when people come back, how do you get them engaged? How do you make them collaborate because they have missed that? Or in a hybrid situation, when people are coming between days or between weeks, to be able to keep them engaged. So that step one is really around the workforce collaboration. And obviously you should use technology to be able to do that, right? The second is around digitizing your spaces. Look at your floor plans, get them all digital. I think that's the first most fundamental thing you should be looking at doing if you want to work in a pretty good hybrid environment. Put in all the safe distancing things in place, whether it's today or it's 1 year down the road. I don't think that's going away. And so you need to have a strategy and plan around it, use technology to be able to do it. Since you have digitized your spaces, just create the neighborhoods, define which places are going to be fixed, which ones are going to be flexible, make everything bookable, right? I'm coming to office, I need a desk, I need to book a meeting room, I need a locker, I need a parking slot, but it should be really seamless. And by the way, I need a meal as well, right? So don't leave that out of the equation. But that's the second piece, is digitize it, and you will also know what the utilization eventually is, right? The third is give the employees that experience, because for all these things, I think there's a great opportunity for you to take whatever was manual and put that more into a digital experience, right? We know that when they come to work, they have issues, they need service requests, whether they're in the office or they're at home. That becomes critical. Digitize it for them. I think they're picking up the phone, WhatsApping, emailing. Those are things of the past, right? So give them a digital experience on it. The second is when they want to look for their colleagues, or they want to book seats, or they need a room, or they need to collaborate, whether they need to be on a Zoom call, a WebEx call, or they need to just have a face-to-face meeting, or just like a town hall. Give them the ability to choose those options, right, digitally. Um, Cleaning, I think that a lot of money, time, and effort is spent on cleaning. I think there's a smart way to do that. Again, a digital experience helps there. So the people that come in to clean know what they need to do. Make your entries contactless, make anything you can contactless, and then look at food and other amenities that you provide to be able to convert them digital, but at the same time, one unified, smooth experience for your employees. And it becomes easier when you've already digitized your spaces. The fourth thing is now you have all this data because you've set it up, you're tracking the occupancy, you're tracking to see who's coming in, how many people check in, what are the times people come in, and that gives you a lot of intelligent information then to be able to make a very calculated decision on the fact that you need to give up certain amount of space if you want to. Some are converting the spaces into different usable spaces. Some are just saying, you know what, I have 5 floors, I don't need 2 of them because I have a good mix of work from home as well as coming back to the office. And I think technology through scenario-based planning, through AI, makes those recommendations to you, right? And, put in sensors where you need to, look at different ways in being able to, look at what the occupancy is. But I think that becomes a key part of it. Pre-pandemic, 100% of the space was used 50% of the time. I think in the hybrid workplace, 70% of the space will be used 100% of the time if you got it right. And that's a huge cost saving right there, right? Last but not the least is the shift to technology. And I know this is a hard decision, right? I came from the world where, 4 years ago, it was all about putting in little solutions, point products, and being able to somehow glue them together. What that did was it kind of shattered the confidence a little bit around prop tech, right? The user experience was a little disjointed. You didn't get all the data you needed. And obviously with that was you never got to AI because you didn't have the data, right? And so obviously it's time for you to think about the platform. It's time for you to think about an integrated play. You can start somewhere, but make sure that you have the integrated play as part of the journey that you're going to have, from a seamless user experience where all of it is on a mobile app or the desktop for the employees. All the analytics are kind of coming together, and you have the ability to piece that, so you know that when you look at it, you get a full end-to-end view. How many visitors are coming in? What is happening to my teams? How many employees? What is the satisfaction levels that they're having? Do I have unused spaces? Am I now connected seamlessly to all the IoT devices that I have? If you put in a digital workplace platform that looks at it end to end, what's going to happen is then you can shift to what I call the third bucket, which is what you want to get to 6 months down the road, which is make everything AI enabled, right? Analytics are great. You will get the right analytics to tell you the right story. But at the same time, I think with AI, you have the opportunity to get really good recommendations from the system. And look, recommendations can be overridden, but at the same time, as the engines are getting more and more accurate, right, you find that the recommendations coming out are pretty spot on. These are from your space planning point of view, and especially with hybrid, right? So much will change. It was hard enough knowing exactly the scenario when you had a fixed desk and you had fixed sort of timings. Now the variables are too many. So obviously moving to the recommendation area. I think basically the other thing is from a self-managed user experience, right? Well, I need a desk. The system should identify the best place because I've got my colleagues around. I know who they are. That's the team that I work in. And so it gives me a more holistic user experience. I need a room, right? And it shouldn't give me 300 choices of rooms that are spread all over the place, right? This is for the purpose of the meeting, the best one that is available to me, right? And so moving to a self-managed user experience, but all that is possible once you put in the workplace platform and you have all the data so that the decision-making can be accurate. And obviously scenario planning, right? Oh, I'm thinking of, well, looking at these 3 spaces and I would like to shut it down. The system should tell you, will there be any impact to how your employees coming back are going to get impacted, right? So scenario planning becomes huge. And I think AI has a significant role to basically play there, right? So we look at it clearly from a workplace platform perspective, starting with the digital workplace, all the way to desk management, because that's pretty critical, which then includes things like finding your colleagues, doing all kinds of other things like smart cleaning, and then rostering, right? Let the system work with you and your managers to determine how the teams are formed, when do they come back, which days do they come back on, and make that into a successful hybrid scenario. Obviously, it's a two-way communication between the employee and the manager. So the manager knows, what's going on in my team. And at the same time, the employees can request for changes that they need. And then shifting over to demand and supply and expenses, a lot of customers have told me that in the hybrid world, they will charge their departments or their users based on utilization, because it's a way to encourage them not to, if you're charging them on utilization, the good part is they're not going to waste space, right? They're going to be pretty mindful about how they use the spaces. So the question is, why decide now? Should you be taking the step now or should you wait? Our sense is you should be taking the step now. A lot of companies around the world are doing it. There's risk mitigation. I think it's a great value proposition to employees that you're bringing in or to new recruits that are coming in, and to retain the current staff you have. Imagine going back to the old world. I'm not sure that that's something that employees really want anymore. It also helps you stay competitive. The CEO of the company is going to say, reduce cost. You have the answer for it. And obviously, it's the whole shift to the human-centric workplace where, look, the employees went through a lot, but you want to be able to give them the right tools to be able to manage this entire scenario in a hybrid situation. That's what I wanted to share with you. In the 15 minutes I had, a lot of learnings out of, we've done deployments in 58 cities around the world. Reach me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you and share more. So with that, I hope you are safe and keeping well. Good luck with it. Thank you very much.